What happened to my Lexus IS250? Well, it's been 3 years since I've owned this car, and there hasn't really been anything going on with the vehicle other than the last time it broke. This month marks the 3-year mark that I've owned this car. Put about 55,000 miles on it so far. I bought it with just shy of 60,000 and we're currently sitting on 95,000 miles currently on my Lexus IS250. It's been a great car. Let's talk about what's broke, give you guys a little bit of a perspective over the last 3 years, and talk a little bit about what the car has actually been like to own, the upsides, the downsides, because every car has both. And this car has some very blatant issues that over the first couple of weeks you get to know very, very well. I do have the auto, I don't have the manual IS250. Manual IS250 would be insane. As you can see by how dirty this thing is, it gets used a lot. This is pretty much the go-to car to take whenever someone needs to go anywhere in the house. The car's been well maintained, even though cosmetically right now it is not clean whatsoever. And we definitely need to give her a bath in the not too distant future. But this car is red on the tan. This car is all-wheel drive, and it is the automatic option because, well, manuals are very rare, and this was supposed to be a daily. There's almost no point in getting a manual one of these. I don't think they make all-wheel drive manuals in the option, so I just wanted to get something easy, simple, all-wheel drive, automatic. We live in Wisconsin. It snows a lot. Weather is not ideal. Anyone can drive this car, which is kind of the point of having it. So, well, moving aside from some of the things that we've already talked about, we've talked about some of the hidden features in this car, the quirks, the features, all of those different things. I just want to give an overview of what it's been like to own, because the last time that we did a little bit of an update on the car was actually broken. This car shredded its CV axle on one side, and I actually went ahead and did a bunch of maintenance on the car that would have costed close to $300 or $3,500 if I was to get it done from a shop. There were a few things that failed, a few things that were preventative, and a few things that the car, well, it just needed with its age. I think I've done a pretty good job in terms of maintaining the car. The car is a Lexus. They are very solid platforms. This is an IS250, so they do have a carbon buildup issue, which, if you don't know what that is, we'll address a little bit in this video, but I do have a full buyer's guide on this vehicle if you are interested. I've done a ton of videos reviewing and helping people figure out what exactly they would want out of an IS model. 2.5 V6, if my memory serves me correctly, this car makes 208 horsepower. When I bought this car, I had originally thought about doing some modifications to it, be a fun daily driver, but it turned into just a daily driver because I learned very quickly this was one of the first cars that I really wanted to modify. But the problem was that the all-wheel drive wasn't an ideal platform for modification, and the 350 would have been better as a platform with more power. So at the end of the day, I decided not to spend more money on something I didn't need to spend more money on. I thought I'd make some fun content. I did a couple of things. You guys seem to enjoy them, but as far as going a step further, I've decided not to do so. The body kits do look cool on this car, but at the end of the day, I really don't want to be spending money on this. And about 8 months after I bought this car, I ended up actually picking up my first project car, which was the Miata. With that and all the rest of the cars I bought after that, I've learned a lot about modifying cars. They did come in manual. Manual rear-wheel drive cars are sought after because, well, they're fun to slide around. The 350 more than the 250. The 250 makes significantly less power. But that being said, I have never wished this car to have more power. It has a reliable 2.5 V6. 200 horsepower is more than enough. It's the perfect sporty daily driver. It does have good handling characteristic to it. It's fun to kind of throw a little bit around the corners. It's not a sports car at the end of the day. It's a sports sedan, if you can call it that. But it's really comfortable. The ride on this car is insanely supple. And that's another reason why I decided not to do anything to the suspension of this car, because why would I make my life worse? This isn't a race car or anything. So I've kept the suspension stock because it does ride really smooth. The seats are really comfortable until you hit a wall. That wall is around the 3.5 hour mark. I've taken this car several times on cross-country road trips down from Wisconsin to Texas, and it's comfortable for a few hours, and then you really get tired very fast. When you're in a bigger SUV or a truck, the ride doesn't seem as long as it does, but in this car, it feels like you went through a mission to go on a 12-hour drive. Even my Mustang, which I took cross country as well, that was more comfortable than this car is after the first few hours. To do like an hour drive or a 2-hour drive, driving around town, this car is insanely comfortable. The seats get to you, and the size of the car, I don't know what it is, but it just feels so long when you drive this car long distances. The other kind of drawback factor of this car are the rear seats. The rear seats, well, they're insanely small. They're not really meant for full-size grown adults to go on 20-30 minute drives. They're a little cramped back there, and I've shown you guys that in the past where I've sat behind myself and I don't really fit behind myself as a 6-foot grown adult. And most of the time, I never use my back seats. I dailied a Mustang. Even after I bought this, I still dailied my Mustang for a year and a half afterwards. So to me, the rear seats weren't a huge drawback factor, but they are a little small. And sometimes when it's like, oh, we do want to go on a 30-minute trip, let's not take the Lexus and let's take the F-150 or the Bronco instead. Those two things with long distance driving and the space in the rear are the biggest issues I really have with the car. And they're not really that big of issues because most people don't drive cross country. And for me, the back seats are a non-issue. Let's go with the issues that this car has had. The biggest issue is the dash. The dash and the door card on the top and the trim used in this car is made of this weird rubber material, and that decomposes and has decomposed in my car, and it's a little unfortunate. And I made it a little bit worse because I installed a Apple CarPlay system into the car, and because of how soft the dash is, I just put like a little bit of a wedge to pull the system out, and I ended up kind of dinging and denting and scraping out and making it a little worse than it was previously. It didn't get worse after that, and it's actually been kind of fine, but there are certain spots on the top of the dash, and especially the door cards, even though my windows are tinted, that you accidentally rub them too hard or you get your nail caught under it and it will come underneath your nail with no issues whatsoever. Mechanical issues: when I bought the car had its headlights just stopped working. That was an expensive fix. It was the little box that needed to be replaced, and it wasn't the actual bulbs itself, but it was the unit for the headlights. The memory seats in this car have never really worked. The cooled heated seats work, but for some reason I can't get that memory seat system to work. Also, the windows have 2 times now failed on this car where the window just won't roll down or roll back up after rolling down. It's the weirdest thing in the world. It's kind of gone away ever since, and well, I'm gonna knock on wood that it is gone, because well, it hasn't happened to me in a little bit, but now and then I'm sure it's gonna come back. Also, this child lock on the rear door is permanently just on. I can't get it to turn off, and haven't looked into it either because, like I said, never really used the rear seats, and when you do fit someone back there on accident, you forget that that's there, and you're like, oh yeah, that door doesn't work. The problem I was having about a year ago was the CV axle and the water pump. The water pump, for probably 6 months to 8 months after I bought the car, started to leak a little bit, and it wasn't failing. The car never overheated. The car was staying cool, but it would just leak a little bit of coolant from the seal. When you're there, you might as well replace the entire water pump. I got quoted $900 from Toyota, and from a private mechanic I still got quoted like $650 or $700. The part itself was like $250, and it took me less than 30 minutes to change out. And by me, I mean my dad did it because he took this car cross country and he was bored one day and just changed it out. But he told me it was literally just like 8 bolts in and out, took an hour or so, and going at a leisure pace. But for some reason we got quoted $300 something for the water pump, and then another $200-300 for labor, where it was really a 1-hour job. Now, while I was there doing the water pump, we replaced a couple other things. To prevent some carbon buildup, you can replace the PCV valve. You have to lift the plastic intake up here off, and then while you're there you can access all the spark plugs as well. So we did both of those things, spark plugs and the valve, and also replace the gaskets inside of the intake there. The other thing you can do if you're having some carbon buildup issues is actually take the throttle body off and clean the throttle body, but that wasn't necessary because the car has been running pretty smoothly in terms of the carbon buildup. Carbon buildup exists in these cars because they are direct injected instead of port injected like the IS350s. Basically, if you take it really easy and you don't rev the cars up now and then, they get a ton of buildup inside of the throttle body and inside of the engine, and that reduces horsepower. It clogs the air that it needs to get. The CV axle on that side went bad, like I was saying last year, and I replaced the CV axle on this side. The brakes all the way around, because the car I did have 90,000 miles, probably original brakes. So we replaced the brakes, rotors, pads. The calipers in the rear were basically like seized and cemented onto themselves because of the Wisconsin winters. So I'd have to look back, but I believe just the rear left caliper was replaced, or both the rears. I don't think it was all four, but it might have been. The brake system got a nice update and a nice flush. And the hubs also had to be replaced, including the wheel bearing. It seems like a lot of issues, and those issues would have cost a lot of money getting them from a private mechanic, but they were all fairly easy to fix problems if the axle would have come out. The axle was a big problem because they were like glued onto the car. A lot of the update happened last August, and she's been smooth ever since. We did an oil change, and it's just been a pleasure to own and drive, comfortable car. I really have nothing else to say or complain about, and I'm probably just going to continue to put more miles on it. At one point, I did consider selling the Lexus, and that was before I did all of the work to it. And now that I did the work to it, well, there's no point in selling it because it's a phenomenal car that's ready to go. The IS350 is probably a little bit more fun if you're looking for a little bit more power, but the fuel economy on this, it still gets about 25 upwards towards 30 miles to the gallon. Not the best, not the worst, because it is the all-wheel drive variant. I'd take the fuel economy over the little bit of a power bump. With that being said, that's all I have for this video. If you guys did enjoy, do me a huge favor, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in seeing more Lexus content, let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe we'll work on the car, maybe we'll do some updates to it, who knows. In the next video, we theoretically should have my rotary RX-7 back up on the road, and if you're interested in seeing that, make sure to stick around, and I will see you guys in the next video.